Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you are well. Sorry for the delay, and also sorry that I couldn't do any of these streams sooner. I know it's been a while, but I've just been very busy with family. My parents have been coming over to visit, and just been a very busy time for me. Hope you are well though, and keeping me in your prayers. So, who do we have with us here? Assalamu alaikum, Ashraf. Good to see you. Yep, I was delayed, unfortunately. I didn't want to use that laptop from last time, which was, the silly app said it sounded like I was in a jacuzzi when the fan started up. Assalamu alaikum, Alina. Hi, man. Good to see you again. Alaikum assalam. Shema, excellent. Good to see you again as well. We have a Ali. Assalamu alaikum. And Lens Grinder. All right, okay. So I just have basically something very simple that I wanted to share today. I'm not sure, by the way, is my voice lower than it usually is? From the feedback that I'm getting, it seems to be a bit low. What I'm going to do is I'm going to present something just very simple, which I actually just came across, I think it was yesterday or something. I'm not sure. Didn't really have time to plan anything else. And then, of course, everybody's always welcome to come on. Whoever has anything they'd like to present or show, please do come on. Give me a second to get this presentation underway. Share screen. Okay, what's this now? Google Chrome would like to record this computer screen and audio, grant access to this application. Sure. Later. And let's see if we can get this working. All right. I think you can see that. Let me just adjust the view. This one. All right, okay. So very simple bit of contemplation, which it's one of those things which when you come across, you think, oh my God, yes, why didn't I think of that? Why didn't I see that before? Very simple. It's looking at the verse from Surah Al-Ankabut, the chapter of the spider, the verse which actually mentions the spider. Okay. And the verse, of course, is very well known. It says, the example of those who have taken you as a guardian. Why is it saying you in this translation? Plus, I thought I had the Arabic in here. Let me just check the slides. And this is very strange. I have it here. It's in the Arabic. What's showing on Google Chrome over here is the English. Why is that? Just give me a second. Let's see if I can fix this. Okay, that's the wrong verse. but I think it's working now, right? Yeah. Okay. Let me just put the right one in there. Sorry about this. 2941. So I'm gonna paste a special. Paste only values. Okay, that should work. Just refresh this. There we go. That's better. Okay, yes. So the verse as it is in Arabic, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا وإن أوهن البيوت لبيت العنكبوت لو كانوا يعلمون. The example of those who take allies, أولياء, other than Allah, is like those of a spider. So their example is like a spider who takes a home, right? Takes a home. And indeed, the weakest of homes is the home of the spider, if only they knew. Okay, so first of all, think of the something that might tie into this, because it's something I only saw yesterday. Or was it today? I'm not sure again. But it's something that needs to be sort of followed through on, to give it a bit more thought. So think of the idea of the two words which are used in the Quran to represent home or house or something like this are Bayt and Dar, right? Bayt and Dar. And Bayt has more of the connotation of, the home, like a home, the difference between the house and home. The house being the brick and mortar place, and the home is, the family, the people inside it, the connections, right? Home is where the heart is, that sort of idea, right? So Bayt as household or home, right? And you have that sort of connected in different verses in the Quran. So, you have, of course, the famous verse of Ahl al-Bayt, right? Rahmatullahi barakatuh alaykum Ahl al-Bayt. Innahu Hamidun Majid. What the angel said to Ibrahim alayhi salam, may peace and blessings of God be upon you, O people of the household, of the home, Ahl al-Bayt. Okay? It wasn't, of course, a blessing on the brick and mortar structure where they were living, so that if Ibrahim and Sarah were to leave and some other people were to come and live in that home, that house, now the blessings would be there. No, the home, the Bayt, is them, the people, right? The people who are there. Whereas Dar seems to be just the material brick and mortar buildings, okay? Which is why you have the verses which talk about the Meccans when they were expelled from their homes in Mecca, and the word used is diyar, right? Diyar, right? الذين أخرجوا من ديارهم, from their houses, right? They're moved from their houses. And here you have the verse in Surah 33 as well, in the same surah where you have where we have the other thing about Ahl al-Bayt. إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم رجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. The one which is speaking about Ahl al-Bayt of the Prophet, right? That God wants to remove filth from you and to purify you. Of course, the people of the household, right? Again, not the actual physical houses, but the household, okay? The household, the family, right? Or family of the Prophet mostly. وَوَرَثَكُمْ, in the same surah, you have when we're talking about the Battle of Al-Ahzab, the battle when Medina got surrounded and there was treachery from the Jewish tribes inside. And this verse says how you were caused to inherit their land, right? Their land and their houses. Okay, and that's of course not homes, but it doesn't say beautihim, right? وَأَوْرَثَكُمْ أَرْضَهُمْ وَدِيَارِهِمْ, right? Not beautihim, وَأَمْوَالَهُم, and their wealth. So it is obviously talking about physical things, physical assets. Okay, so why do we bring this up? Because when it comes to the household of the spider, the Bayt of the spider, okay, meaning the family members, the family relationships, the links. The spider does have the weakest. Well, again, this is something we need to sort of like contemplate and look up more. But does it have the weakest, or is it just of the weakest? But if we were to put our faith in this verse, we'd probably find that the spider in general has the weakest of households, and we see that. And I don't know if you've seen these documentaries and things before. I mean, I still do love watching nature documentaries, and the things about spiders are amazing as well. Which is that the female spiders, for example, they will eat the male when the male tries to mate with them, right? So they'll wait there, and the male tries to creep up slowly to mate with the female, and he has to be careful, right? Because she just goes by instinct and thinks of him as prey and tries to eat him, or if she allows him to mate with her, he tries to quickly make a getaway, because as soon as that's done, she will try to eat him again, right? So there's literally no link of bait in there at all, no like home familyness or anything like that at all. Female spiders will also eat their own offspring, right? They will also eat their own offspring, given the chance. Many of them will, whether because they're hungry or whatever it is. Of course, they all don't do that, otherwise there'd be no more offspring. But very quickly, female spiders can turn on its own children and eat them, right? And even the female offspring will eat the female spider very soon after hatching, and in some of those situations, the female spider is actually basically laying down to allow them to eat her, right? But the point is that they eat their mother, right? So it's not a very common thing in nature for the children to eat the parent. Okay, cannibalism is around in nature, of course. But anyway, the point is that from that you can see that there's another meaning comes out from the home of the spider. Of course, most of the time when we think of this verse, you think of just the spider web, right? The house of the spider is very weak. The spider's web is the weakest of houses compared to everything else, you'd say. But from this angle as well, in terms of thinking of bait as in the family, right? It seems that the spider is also the weakest in that regard as well, in terms of having any kind of sort of family, I don't know, what do you say, family links towards each other, or family faithfulness towards each other, or caring, or whatever you'd like to term it. It's very weak. They will cannibalize each other. They will eat each other. That's how spiders are. So in a similar way, could it not be said that those who take other than Allah as awliya have such weak relationships with each other, and will often cannibalize each other as well? So that's food for thought and something to think more about. I saw also that the person was Fareed from Fareed Responds, when I saw this on Twitter, and he was saying that he was making fun of this idea. Which I couldn't see why would you make fun of it, because it is a very brilliant insight, right? And very simple, right? It's one of those things which I said just leaps out at you once you hear it for the first time. If you know something about spiders, at least. One of his objections, he said that that ittakhadh is not about having like family and stuff like that, in the same way that the spider, it doesn't take a house, right? We don't think of the spider as taking a house. The spider builds its house, in terms of the web, it builds it itself. It doesn't take it. So that objection I found not in its place, when he was saying basically that it doesn't fit to interpret the verse in this sort of way, because ittakhadhat is never used for like taking family members or anything like that. But at the same time, the spider doesn't take a home, right? Ittakhadhat baytan doesn't exactly take a home. It builds the spider's web, doesn't it? Okay, so that's it. That's really all I wanted to share today. I don't really have much more than that. So if anybody would like to come on, the mic is free. I don't have anybody backstage. Please feel free to come on. Let me check the chat very quickly. Assalamu alaikum. Prayas, good to see you back. It says, in that case, bait seems to be more appropriate for paradise, like a home. Why is it referred to as dar? Well, I suppose because it is also a dar, right? So it's talking about, this is something that you're being given as a reward, and typically you think about a reward in more like a sort of material sense. Something can be a dar and a bait together, right? I don't know. I haven't thought of that, to be honest. Like I said, this is something which we can contemplate on further. I just thought of this because of hearing this, right? This difference. I thought, okay, let me think about this a little bit. Bait, and then I thought, okay, in the Quran we have bait and we have dar, and then I started to think about, okay, what's the difference between bait and dar? And so that's what I came up with very quickly, just to to present it here for all of you. But yeah, definitely take it up and follow through on it. I mean, Jannah isn't. It's referred to as dar in some places, but which places? I'm trying to remember them now. So you've got dar al-khuld, right? The abode of permanence, right? That's mentioned in the Quran. Dar al-khuld, dar al-muqama, I think, is there as well. But I'm not sure, right? I think we'd need to look at it more. Yes, there's also masakin as well. Masakin is another one that's in the Quran. Or masakin tayyibatin, right? Masakin is sort of like places of second, of sakina, a place where you relax or rest, right? So the Quran talks about masakin tayyibatin tardawnaha, right? Or masakin tayyibah. That's true. That's another one. Yeah, mentions 2 gardens, but I think what Lenz was asking about here was the use of the word dar with Jannah, and it is. I think it's used with Jannah as well. Is it also used with the hellfire? I can't remember right now. Is it also used in connotation with punishment? The place of punishment. Dar is used for that as well. Could be. So it would be something more like neutral. Again, dar is something which is neutral in terms of what I would say it is here in this world. It would be something neutral, just a house, right? The place, the actual brick and mortar place. Yeah, here's another one. Masakin alladhina zalamu anfusahum. Thank you, Shema. There's those verses which talk about the masakin, the living places, or the place where they used to live, of those who were unjust to themselves. I see this as having a spiritual meaning. The spiritual hierarchy of power has the man as the Khalifa. The woman attempts to usurp and serve Shaitan. I'm not sure what that's got to do with this. What do you mean? Are you talking about this verse about the spider? I'm not sure. What is that? What has that got to do with that, to be honest? The children being emotionally attached to the mother will listen to her over the man. Okay, yeah. I mean, but this isn't really about the children listening to the mother or anything. We're just talking about the sort of the household of the spider. But that is a point that I did think about, that if we were to look at the household of the spider, a lot of it, of course, even we all know this ourselves in our own homes and family. The one who really makes the home a home is the mother, right? You find this in communities who where the grandmother is alive, the whole of the family is still kept together, right? The grandchildren come over, the children, they stay together, right? It's like the matriarch, okay? And then when the grandmother passes away, very soon the children and the grandchildren, they sort of scatter. They don't come together as much as they were. The one who really makes the home is the woman, right? She's really the life of the home, right? The life of the home, and she keeps it. She keeps everybody together and keeps everybody in that kind of relationship. So in this case, when it comes to the spider, maybe there's a lesson in that, because it seems to be a lot of the wahan, the weakness of the household of the spider, is coming from the female, right? So this could be like the opposite, the exact opposite of what would be the best thing, right? It seems to be that it's the female who eats the male here. It's the female who eats the offspring. But of course, then it's all has to do with the female as one which gives birth, right? And that's all related to that as well. Even in for us, the humanity, the killing of children, right? That it's done by a larger proportion by women, right? By the mothers, and then by the fathers, right? So there's that too. I'm saying yes. I'm comparing it to the family home. The eating is symbolic. Yeah, I mean, it isn't in the Quran, of course. It's this idea that the spiders are eating their children. It's not in there, so we can say it's symbolic. But yeah, it's something that you can take from nature to think about and sort of as a place of contemplation from nature. But yes, okay. There's still nobody backstage, by the way. So if anybody wants to come on, please do. If not, I'll probably close the stream in 15 minutes or something if there's nothing else coming on. Again, sorry I couldn't come on last week or the week before that. Just been very busy. I've currently got my parents who are here with me visiting, and they have a lot of health issues and health concerns. So I spent as much time as I can with them these past few weeks. Okay, I have Aslam is back. Assalamu alaikum, Aslam. I'll bring you on.
Walaikum assalam. Is my voice audible?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much. Hope you're doing well after, I think, 2 or 3 weeks gap.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me do something because it seems your sound. Let me check something on the audio because the sound seems to be coming.
How is it now? Is it better?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Okay. No, just give me a second. It's not coming through what I wanted to come. Give me a second. You can hear me though, right?
Yes, I'm able to hear you clearly.
All right, I think that's better. Speak now.
Yeah, is my voice audible? Is it better now?
It is audible. It's just that it's coming through the speakers and through my headphones and through the speakers, which I don't want because it will wake up the baby. So give me a second, the mic, the speaker. Yeah. Let's try that. Okay, try now.
Yes, I'm able to hear you clearly. Is my voice clear? I mean, is it audible?
No, like I said, your voice was clear. It was just it was coming through the laptop speaker as well. But now it seems to be better. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying it's been like 2 or 3 weeks gap. I hope
Yeah.
everything is good at your end.
Yeah. It's been fine. Just busy times. That's all.
All right, all right. So I just wanted to share about. I tend to go. For me, I always like in the Quran the conversation aspect. I really find it very amazing. And one of the inspiring conversation I really like is when God is discussing about Adam, and then in front of God, the angels, in a way, are criticizing God that why did you create this human being? I mean, in today's time, we see if anyone, any politician, anyone criticize the king or someone, they gets imprisoned and this thing. So the majesty of God is in front of God. The angels are criticizing, but then the God is replying to them, I know what you're not aware, and then God demonstrating it. So that I
Yeah.
really find that the conversation inspiring.
Yeah.
So I wanted, yeah, go ahead.
No, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Now, I was going to say something else related to that, which is that one thing that we're missing a lot of in our history is the conversation, the back and forth between the prophet and the Meccans, right? So
Yeah,
we see that in the Quran. We see that if you look through just the Meccan surahs, that there was
yeah,
a huge dialogue going back and forth between the prophet and the Meccans, right? That there was some back and forth talk, back and forth, trying to convince and coming back, and also that the way the Quran was moving, it was changing. So from the
correct,
earliest surahs to the middle Meccan surahs to the late Meccan surahs, okay, it was developing an argument. It was developing as opposed to their arguments to what they were saying. But all of that is gone from the seerah. I mean, the seerah, when it comes to Mecca, what we know from the seerah and hadiths in Mecca is very little. The dialogue between the prophet and Quraysh is not recorded, right? But
correct.
from the Quran, it seems that there was definitely a dialogue continuously going back and forth with them.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. I mean, Muslims don't rely much on the biblical related things because they say that it's corrupted and all. But I still find very valuable information from them because for me, I find the stories of those prophets mentioned in the Bible more. I mean, this is for me. I'm subjective, but I find it more what you call spiritual, more interesting, and more. Compared to the stories of the Sahaba. This is like my personal opinion. Others can disagree, but for me, I that's why I always read all those biblical movies of ancient prophets and all. Those I find more connecting compared to the Sahaba stories, because for me, when I see the Sahaba stories, they're going to the world and they are like conquering other countries, and also that doesn't fit in my framework of things. So
Yeah. Well, I don't know much about the stories in the Bible, to be honest. I still haven't sat down
because
and read through them.
yeah. So basically why I was discussing about that conversation is that Satan or the angels, they were aware that if God give them the free will, they're going to spread, and they were right. I mean, we see in USA people are just having the gun and they're killing in universities and all. So I mean, it's like the angels in the beginning only they know that they are going to shed blood and these all things, the terrorism and other things. So
Yeah.
God wanted to say out of this there will be people, and the Quran mentions that these are the believers who repel evil with good. So God knew that even in these situations there will be my people, although they may not be able to see me, but they can understand through this universe. They know my presence. Like if I see somebody, I can see the physical body, but behind that I know that there is a human being also. So when I see the universe, I know that behind that there is intelligent or wise sustainer as well. So a
Yeah.
believer will be able to like repel evil with good. He will be able to as the Quran mentions that he will control his anger and he will forgive people. So, and if we see the conversation of prophets, they go and interact with their people. They say, "Oh my people." They don't say, "Oh, kafirs, etc." They say, "Oh my people," and I'm a nase. Nase means a trustworthy advisor. I mean, the
Yeah.
translation says that I'm a trustworthy advisor. Similarly, when two brothers of Adam are fighting, one brother is saying, I'm going to kill you. But the other person is saying that even though I fear my Lord.
Yeah.
So through these circumstances, God wants to inform the angels that this is what you don't know about the human being, that
Mm.
how much that aspect of they have, and this is what the test is. This is my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, yes. I mean, look, the the interesting thing about the initial this, of course, in Surah Al-Baqarah in the beginning, right, is that
Yeah,
the thing which I find interesting to think about is, of course, God asks that He tests afterwards. So yes, of course, first of all, that God doesn't negate what the angels say. He doesn't say you're wrong. This is not going to
yeah,
happen, right? Because it clearly does, right? But the interesting thing is that how God sort of like what happens afterwards. Because what does He do? He says, okay, He brings forth Adam and He teaches him the names, right? Then He
yeah,
asks the angels the names, and they don't know. Then He says to Adam, tell them the names, and they tell him, and He says, didn't I tell you that I know um, the hidden things of the heavens and the earth? So it's a very strange thing, because imagine like you've got like a bunch of students, okay,
yeah,
and you divide them into two, right? One half you give them the answers to some questions, and the other half you don't. Then you bring
yeah,
them then you bring them together, and you ask both halves of students if they know. Well, obviously the one you taught is the one who's going to know, right? The
correct.
ones who you didn't teach are not going to know. Okay, so what's the point of doing that, right? If you have two sons and they're both ignorant, and then you decide you're going to teach one of them,
Yeah,
right? And then you're going to ask both of them the answer. Um, why do that when obviously the one who you taught is the one who's going to know, and the one who you didn't teach is not going to know, right? Even the angels say that,
correct.
"Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana." We don't know
Yeah,
except what you teach us, right? And of course, God didn't teach them the names; He taught them to Adam. So what is this that part that part of the story, that sequence? What was that supposed to show?
that God,
Yeah.
God. I mean, I think it's about like something. I
I'm not.
mean,
I don't know myself. I'm just saying
yeah,
that this is something to think about, because
mm,
um, it's a bizarre thing to do, right? When you think about it, it's a bizarre thing to do. It's like I'm going to, like, you get two sons, and you're going to say, I'm going to show son A that son B is better than him or something. How? Well, I'm going to teach son B, and then son B is going to show that he knows it, but I'm not going to teach son A, and so he's not going to know it, and that shows that son B is better than son A, or something like that, right?
mm,
Um, that in the end, God taught the names to Adam. He didn't teach to the angels. Um, so what was the point of asking in that kind of way,
mm,
right? Um,
yeah,
so there are. I mean, I have some suspicions about it, but it's something to think about. Okay, because
yeah.
that's the interesting part of that, I think.
Yeah. So I think the main what we can understand, or like when we do the tadabbur, I think is that like without seeing also God, the human being will still have the innate yes. I mean, I am going to be accountable in front of God, and He arranges like, or He, because the angels and other, I mean, other creations are aware about God's presence. I mean, but human being, we cannot see God, like, because
Hmm.
we cannot. So despite the fact
But I
we
mean,
know that God is, yeah,
do the angels see God? Right? The angels also, I don't think they don't see God, right?
but in the conversation it I mean it like it comes across that they are in front of God, like it comes across like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with Isa alayhi salam, right? Or some of the
Hmm.
other
Yeah.
prophets when they're speaking to Allah and over here. Who's to say that the angels are just as blind to God as we are from here, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
it's it's we can't say that they sort of see God in any more way than we do.
Okay.
Mm.
So it's just like you were saying that it's a conversation, but we are not 100% sure that they were like physically they were, or like visually they were able to see God and this
Yeah,
thing.
I mean, in terms of the Quran, it says لا تدركه الأبصار, right? Vision cannot
Mm-hmm.
encompass it, right? So
Okay,
that
okay,
doesn't that
okay.
means that includes the angels. I don't see why it just includes um,
Hmm.
human beings
Yeah,
and physical sight or
yeah.
yeah.
For
So
me, actually, yeah. But for me, it doesn't even matter these all things. I mean, many things. For
mm,
me, it's important is what I can apply in my life,
yeah.
because that's the thing. Many people they do the argument whether the Quran is created and created. For me, I think it
Mm,
doesn't matter only. I
mm,
mean,
mm, mm,
for me, it's important. Uh, this one thing is for sure. The Quran verse says that we have created life, and that is the sole purpose that God want to test us through
mm,
situations, through circumstances, through
mm,
like injury, and then now the COVID, etc., etc. And how I
mm,
approach, how I understand the universe. This is what my day-to-day life is. And God is
mm.
watching. Even now, God is watching me. Even what is within my soul, etc., etc. So that aspect is more important for me, and I think for other believers also.
Yeah, without that, without that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Uh,
All right, so I've got now suddenly there's
yeah,
two
sure.
other people now. They
Okay.
want to come on, so let me get
Yeah,
them on
sure.
as well.
Yeah.
But thank you again for coming on. Jazakallah
No, sure.
khair. See you again soon. So now, all right, we have Saeed. Assalamu alaikum, Saeed, bringing you on.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you?
I'm doing great, brother.
Good,
I have a
excellent.
question about the spider. Yeah, Allah gave an example of the spider. Could
Hmm.
you explain to me, because I do not understand the fully?
What I was saying?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
yeah. So this verse, you've seen the verse before, right? The verse of the spider in the
yes,
Quran.
yes, yeah,
Um, which if we go back to it, this verse here. So the example, Allah has given an example. It's saying those who take awliya other than Allah, okay, their example is like the spider which takes a home, okay, which has a home basically, okay, and then to show how weak that is to take allies other than Allah. Allah is comparing that to how a spider takes a home, and how the home of a spider is very weak. So the spider's web, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Spider's web is very, very weak. Okay, so that's the main meaning, which most of us have heard this verse. That's what we think about. That's the main thing that we go to, right? That of course a spider's house is very, very weak, right? Spider
yeah,
just makes its house out of thread from its own body, and just a push with your finger and it's gone, or even the wind, or even the rain, and the web, the home is destroyed. It's very weak.
yes, yeah,
Okay, so what I was showing here was something which I just saw today or yesterday. I even forget when I actually saw it. Um, but the idea is that if you look at the spider and you look at its home, not just the house as in the the spider's web, but as in its home, the household. So when you talk about your home, right? How is your home? Or put your home together. Get your house in order. When somebody says you get your house in order, what does that mean? It doesn't mean a clean, natural, physical house. It means your wife, your kids, your family. Get your house in order. It means your household, right? And so, when you read the Quran a bit more and look at these two words, you look at the word bait, and you look at the other word dar, which is another word which is used for houses in the Quran. You can see pretty much that dar is more about the physical, house, the physical homes, right? So when the Muslims were expelled from Mecca, they were expelled from their diyar, dar, the actual homes, the property. Um, when the Muslims defeated the Jewish tribes within Medina, they got their houses, right? Their houses, the physical houses, their diyar, right? Whereas conversely, when Allah blessed the house of Ibrahim alayhi salam, Ahl al-Bayt, the people of the house, it wasn't really about the physical house. So even if Ibrahim and Sarah were to move to another house, or they were to sell that house, the blessings would still be on them, their household, right? So it's that sort of idea. Of course, I know that when it says, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh alaykum, upon you, ahl al-bayt, people of the household, okay, it's directed at them, the people, right? At the people. So it's not being directed at the household, it's the people of the household. Yeah. But I'm just saying that this idea, it seems to be linked in that kind of way. There are other verses as well. For example, when the hypocrites said to I think also in the same surah, إن بيوتنا لعورة وما هي بعورة يريدون إلا فرارا. That they would say our houses are exposed. In this case, they said إن بيوتنا عورة. Our houses are exposed, and that's because in their houses, in the actual physical houses, their women and children are there as well. So when the army was out, patrolling around Medina during the Battle of Ahzab, the hypocrites were saying, no, we want to go back because our biyut are exposed, right? Biyut here would be the people in there as well. So they didn't want to have their women and children, taken captives or anything like that. So point is that you can read another layer in this verse. This verse which says that the house of the spider is among the weakest of houses. You can read another layer into that, where you look at the house of the spider as in the household, right? The family relationships within us that the spider has, and you find that they don't have very strong family relationships at all, right? That the female spiders will eat the male spider, the husband, right? The wife spider will eat the husband spider. As soon as the mating is done, that the female spiders will eat their offspring. That the offspring will eat their mothers. Okay, and the male spiders also will eat any of them as well when they can. Right, the male spiders will just hunt anything. Right, other spiders, their children included. So in that sense as well, the house of the spider is among the weakest of houses. So that was the point of that. Okay.
Yeah. I understand now. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Nice.
Brother Auric, I have one more about the marriageable age in Quran. There is a ayah. It says about Allah use word marriageable age, but I don't speak Arabic. So could you find the word marriageable age in the ayah number 46?
Okay, let me bring the verse. There isn't actually a verse which is marriageable age, but which verse are you talking about? I think you're talking about Balagh al-Hulum, probably, right? Which verse?
It's a four chapter and 6 verse.
Surah 4, yeah, and verse 6. Yeah, so it says, وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحَ. All right, yes, this verse, yes. I remember that, yes. وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحَ. بَلَغُوا النِّكَاحَ, when they reach the age of marriage, yes.
So this is the word within in the Arabic.
Yeah, بَلَغُوا basically means reach and nikah, reach the marriage age.
Okay.
So reach the age of marriage, but yes.
So this was also talking about age of marriage.
Well, it's not really talking about the age of marriage. Just saying, it's talking about the orphans, right? It's talking about orphans and their property. Okay, that when an orphan who you are holding their property in trust, when should you give over that money, that property, to the orphan completely? When should you give it over to the orphan? At which age, right? And it says when they reach marriage age, right? When they reach marriage age. So it's talking about marriage age, but within a different context. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like as a marker.
But when I gave a property to the orphan, that age cannot be 6-year-old.
Yeah, of course not. Yeah, of course. It
So
can't be 6. Can't be
it can
7,
be
8,
10,
9,
9, 12.
Yeah, no.
I could not give a property to a 12-year-old. If I have $100,000, I could not give.
Well, this verse is talking about 2 things, right? So it's saying when they reach marriage age, then if you perceive in them uprightness, rushdan. If you perceive that they are being upright, they have good judgment, right?
Judgment, good
So
judgment.
so even if somebody has reached the age of marriage, let's say 16, 17, 18, right? They are the age of marriage. If they're still basically just a lousy person who just who hasn't become, he hasn't left his childhood behind. He's still childish. He still does stupid things. He's not an upright person. He's always getting into trouble. Fights or whatever. He's not a balanced person yet,
But
right?
you
Then you
also
still
can,
don't. Then
yeah,
you still don't give them the wealth,
yeah,
okay?
but you still don't
Because
hold.
the issue, no, because you see the issue of the wealth of the orphans. Yes, it belongs to the orphan, but you're holding it as a trust, in a position of responsibility for the parent, right? For the orphan's actual parent, right? And the wealth, you're not going to give it to them when they're 6 or 7 because they will just waste it, right? And the parent wouldn't want that. So you're
Yeah,
trying to give it to the orphan, when it will be of benefit to them, when they won't just mess it up or mess around with it.
yeah. If I gave the orphan in return their property to them, at least I need to know, could they keep they save this property, this money they can keep safe, you
Yeah,
know.
that they can keep it safe. That they're not
Yeah.
going to just, for example, waste it all on gambling or wrong
No,
things, or just
no,
or
it's
just
not the
buy.
gambling, but it's not the gambling, but it's the, somebody will take them from them, give
Yeah, I mean,
fraud them and
yeah, it's not about whether somebody will steal it from them or not, because somebody could always steal or take from them, but it's how they will behave with it. That's what it's. فإن آنستم منهم رشدا.
now,
If you
they
if you
are able
perceive from
to
them,
take care the money. If I gave them, they
yeah,
able to take care the money.
yeah. I mean, take care of the money is going to be a part of it, but what the verse is really getting at is that if they are able to use it responsibly, right? فإن آنستم منهم رشدا is about if you perceive that they will be responsible with the money, right? Because sometimes the wealth that an orphan is going to get is going to be a lot of wealth, okay? So, imagine a I don't know, a 13, 14, 50-year old, street boy, all right, somebody who's a thug or something, suddenly getting a huge amount of money, that was left to them by their parents, right, at
Yeah,
that age. It would just be bad. It will corrupt them, and they'll waste it. They will do, whatever with it. Okay, so you should wait until you see that this orphan has left that kind of silliness behind, that they're not childish anymore, that they're acting like an adult, right? And then you give them the money. And then of course they could still mess up with it. They could still do, waste
yeah,
it. They
yeah,
could still, yeah. But then it's their responsibility. They are no longer. They're now more like an adult. They're thinking like an
yeah, yeah.
adult,
So
right?
the word marriageable age, Allah
Yeah. Is
mentioned Allah mentioned in that, because Allah trying to give you a hint. They are mature now enough, and they can marry too, or they can
yeah.
save their property, able to take care their property.
Yeah.
So this is Allah fixed the marriageable age in
Yeah.
this ayat. It according to me, uh, marriageable age at least 16, 18, 20, 22.
Hmm.
You can,
Well, it's not fixed. There's no number given here. There's
no,
no
but
actual
the
age.
maturity Allah is showing over here, sound judgment. The only
Hmm.
people who can take a sound judgment, at least 16, over 16. It can be go lower than that.
No, so you're missing the idea again. So the idea, there's two things, right, that must be together. That doesn't mean you can't have one without the other. Okay, so there are even children. There are children you will find. Okay, they're very, very rare, who are 9 years old, 12 years old, right? Who are not marriageable age, but they do have sound judgment. Okay,
No, I don't think
no, you
that.
can. No, you can. You can
No,
find find
look,
find kids
look.
like that, especially kids like, for example, we had a family friend who the youngest son, matured very quickly because his older brother was autistic, right? So he had to, and he was looking after him and stuff like that. So he matured very, very quickly. He was like a
No,
very mature, responsible person, even at a very young age, where of course he couldn't get married. Okay.
when it's come to property and money,
Hmm.
maturity, you cannot say a 9-year-old became a mature to take care of the money. You
No,
cannot.
but because look, listen again. You're not focused on it. There's two things being mentioned here. Okay, both have to be there before you give the money to the orphan. Both. The first is reaching a marriage age. Now, somebody can reach marriage age and they can still not be level-headed enough for you to give them the money. Okay, somebody could reach 20 years old, 25, 30 years old, and still not. You
No,
still can
no,
give them the
that's,
money.
even if you say 30, 35 are also not, mature enough to take care money, you can say that. But we are talking about average people who
Yeah, but
became a
I'm just trying.
mature.
I
Uh,
understand. I'm just trying to get you to understand that the two things are separate. Okay, so somebody could reach marriageable age and still not be level-headed enough to be given their money, and somebody could be level-headed enough to be given the money, but they're not reached marriageable age, and you still don't give them the money. Both have to be there. Is that
Yeah, yeah.
clear?
So
Yeah.
what I am talking here is a average people, not exceptional people. 9-year-old can take care property. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the average people who can take care their money if they get money. It at least you have to have a 16, 18-year-old so they can understand, their friend, they can refuse their friend to give money. If their friend asks money, they can refuse. So I'm not going to give you. If you give the 8-year-old, 9-year-old child, you give a credit card, the friend will take away their money. So this is Allah talking about the maturity when they can take care the money when you give them. Back then there was no bank or anything credit card. That time, if parent left you a gold, 10 gram, 20 gram gold, so you cannot give a 9-year-old. You take your parents' gold. You cannot give them. At least they grow up until 18-year-old. Then you can say, is she able to take this money, this gold?
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
the same way Allah talking about that age is also marriageable age. That's what
Yeah.
Allah set up this marriage age of marriage based on she and he can take care uh, uh, the property and that same marriageable age also. Both are the
No,
same.
no. So I see. I still don't think you understood what I said before. They are separate. They are separate. In the Quran, it says, look, if you read the verse, right, let's read it slowly, okay? I read where's the Sahih International? The Sahih International says, and test the orphans, okay? So you have to test them as well, okay? Until they reach marriageable age. So you keep on testing them, right? You check if they are discernment, if they have discernment. Then, if you perceive in them sound judgment, release their property to them. Okay, it's not saying that they will have sound judgment at marriageable age. Okay,
Sound judgment means ability to take care the money, correct? Or is just a sound judgment? I
no,
mean,
it's just sound judgment. Sound
no,
judgment,
right.
uprightness. It doesn't say, sound judgment to be able to look after the money, but of course that's
I
implied,
mean, that's
right?
that's what you have to test. What test? Why are you testing? You
No,
are
it doesn't have to
testing.
be. No, it
You
doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be um, um, for money. They
so
just sound. Just that they are now upright. They have sound. It says sound judgment in the thing, but in Arabic it just says rushdan, right? To be rashid, to have some rushd, to be able to act rightly. Okay, it doesn't have to be with respect to the money. Okay,
But
look,
this is about this.
it's just about seeing. I mean, you've seen kids, right? You know the difference between somebody, a young person who is still like a child, and a young person who's now got his head together, right? You've seen the difference, haven't you? Right?
Yeah.
You've seen that there's a difference between somebody who's still acting like like he's still a child, like he can just, he has no responsibilities, that he can do whatever he wants, that he just wants to play all the time. There are kids there are people like that, right? And there are people who have now started to take on responsibility. They started to think beyond just their immediate gratification. They started to plan for the future, right? There's a difference between them, and sometimes somebody can be like this at a young age or at an old age. Okay, so it's not that the marital age is when you give them the property. No, somebody could marry and they could still not be a person of rushd as well. I mean, people can marry at a young age when they're not people of rushd, right? They're not thing, but they've reached the age where they could marry. Okay, they reached the age where they could marry.
Allah put in same ayat marriageable age and you have ability to take care. Judgment, make a judgment. Judgment, Allah is telling you over here because of when you gave them, if they do not have judgment, they will, give somebody else. So, the ability to, yeah. So, what I am saying that Allah put the word marriageable age equal to they became mature enough
No,
when they
no, it's
begin.
not. It's not in the verse. Not like that. It says marital age, and it says, and then if you sense in them uprightness. Okay, and then. Okay, so it's they are separate. These two things are separate. They're different. Okay, they're not the same. They're not linked like that way, right?
So
They've reached the marital age. They reach marital age, and then after that, you see when will they reach this maturity, this be able to think straight. Okay.
yeah, when maturity, what age teenager became a mature? What age
One
they
moment.
became a mature?
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry. I don't know if you heard that.
It's okay.
No, go away. I'm trying to get this Siri thing to go away. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
So
Well, look,
when they became a mature, teenager, when they became a mature, what age you think?
no, you check. There's no age.
No,
There's
no,
no one age.
no. Yeah, I think we know the mature. When the teenager became a mature, at least they have to have 18-year-old. So they have some.
There are 18 years old who are not mature. There are 19-year-olds who are not mature. There are
No,
20-year-olds who are
but
not mature.
we are looking here. At least they have to reach at least 18-year-old or higher.
No.
But
There are 15-year-olds who are mature. There are 16-year-olds who are mature. It's
but
not. There's no one.
those are not. Those are just exceptional, not
Well,
evidence.
exceptional or not, if they are 15 years old and they are mature enough, you give them their wealth. Even if you say, okay, it's an exception, fine, it's exception, but you still give them their wealth.
No,
It
but
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the average age is something else.
there are professor age of 18-year-old. So you cannot take one exceptional and make a roll over that.
I'm not saying, but you can't take a rule and use it to be unjust to those who are exceptional.
No, even you cannot give money to the whatever age. I mean, underage people you cannot give them. At least they need to reach at least 18-year-old, so they can understand how to take care their money. So that's the age also, marriageable age. That's why Allah mentioned the word marriageable age in this ayah. There is a purpose of mentioning the marriageable age. There is, it's just Allah does.
The purpose is that even if the person is mature, if they haven't reached the marriageable age, then you don't give them the money. Okay, it's two conditions. It's two things together. Okay, you reach the marriageable age, then afterwards, no matter what that marriageable age is, okay, after that, you see if they are upright. If they're upright, you give them the money. If they are not, you don't. Next year, see if they are upright. If they're upright, give them the money. If they don't, if they're not, you don't. Check the year after that. Are they upright? Give them the money. If not, don't. Every year, check. Okay, something like that. Regularly check. Okay, and when finally this person is upright, settles down. Okay, isn't just a to use the UK term, is not a waste man anymore, right? You give them their money then, right? However long that takes, whether they're it's at 21 or it's at 15 years old, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Anyway, look, I want to bring a couple of other people who are waiting.
Okay, brother. Thank you. I
Right?
appreciate.
No problem. No problem. Take care
All
of
right.
yourself, and good to see you again, Said. Take care.
All right.
Salam.
Bye-bye.
No problem. All right. Assalamu alaikum, Ashraf. I'll bring you on for a while as well. Assalamu alaikum.
Alikum salam. Can you hear me, Khan?
Yes, I can hear you. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Yeah, get it on, alhamdulillah.
So I wanted to talk about the angels in that first page of history that we're told.
Yes.
Because I find that, that it's history as it unfolds. There is a start, there is a middle, and there is an end. And, that first page of history with the angels, what you were talking about earlier on, it was, Allah, it's like an announcement Allah's made. We see that from the Qur'an. So he was going to place one who would establish a khilafah or a khalifa who's going to establish a khilafah, a just, a rule on earth. So the Quran subsequently ordered that such a rule must be based on truth, right? And truth must therefore be just. We will, will you, and then the angel said, will you place on earth those who will inflict corruption and destruction, as well as shed blood? So the angels responded. I don't think they were being critical. I think they responded as they did because Allah the Most High had disclosed to them only part of the bloodstained events that would occur in history in the quest to establish a bogus rule over mankind. But Allah did not disclose to them the end of history.
Okay.
So when I'm reading what I'm seeing is that the Quran concerning a divinely ordained rule over the world with which history would end, and it will be a rule that will be established when the Messiah, Isa alayhi salam, returns. And that will be based on truth and justice. And I'm going to argue it a little bit further. Hold on before you butt me in. So the Quran delivered a hint of this, of the fasad. Fasad meaning a corruption which destroys, that will unfold in history with the angels, right? It did so when Allah the Most High placed Adam and his wife in the garden of heaven, and he warned them not to go near a certain tree that would cause them to be wicked and unjust in their conduct. Now, this tree is not to be understood literally, since trees do not corrupt people, right? The tree must be recognized as a symbol. So the symbol here is the bogus bloodstained rule over mankind. And what we see today, where we are in history, we can see that evidence emerging this to be Pax Judaica, what we're seeing in Israel, because there's ample evidence of their facade and bloodshed rule that's connected to what the angels saw, on the pages of history, that consequent it will be an evil and a woefully misguided Jewish effort to establish the eternal rule over mankind from Jerusalem, as what they're doing now. So the forbidden tree, we can argue, as Pax Judaica, which is unfolding right before our eyes, because of the disclosure by the Qur'an of what Satan whispered to Adam, right? What did he say? He said, "Oh Adam," it's in Surah Taha, "shall I lead you to a tree of eternal life, an eternal rule, and a kingdom that will never perish?" So this tree is linked to eternity and to a kingdom, a mulk that will never perish, hence a forbidden tree, a rule that will be eternal. And now it's quite clear, that the forbidden tree, with the present state of Israel, which is kind of poised to declare itself to be the holy Israel of David and Solomon, that's what they're attempting to do. So it's this state of Israel and no other which wants to rule the world with a rule that will never perish, i.e. an eternal rule. So, and then the Quran discloses more information about this tree. But over here, the imagery is quite difficult, I mean, I'm sure you heard of this verse. In Surah Taha, it talks about when they ate from the tree, the nakedness, and they started covering themselves up with leaves. So this was the forbidden tree, right? Now, the tree caused them both to become conscious of the nakedness and then try to cover that nakedness with leaves as an act of modesty. But I don't think this is literally, because I don't think this is connected anything to do with sexual relations. Rather, I think the nakedness resulted from the eating of the tree should be a loss of innocence. So they lost their innocence. Hence, confidently, we can kind of say that the forbidden tree is related to lust, that lust for eternal life and the lust for eternal rule. And then if we look at the Quran, it discloses precisely a Jewish lust for eternal life. In Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 94, like Allah says, but never will they long for it, because, meaning the Jews, of what their hands have sent ahead in this world. And Allah has full knowledge of the evildoers. And He says, if the abode with Allah is heavenly life hereafter to be for you alone, to the exclusion of all other people, then you should long for death, if that what you say is true. So the Quran discloses that they lust for life, and Allah says, they love life more than even more than the pagans. They wish that they live 1,000 years. So we can say, so Allah the Most High knew, and which the angels did not know, that this lust to rule the world eternally by Jewish people who also lusted for eternal life would lead them to wicked and unjust rule on earth, that which would result in bitter fruits in the form of corruption and destruction and bloodshed, as we're seeing now. However, Allah's creation is a moral order, and since the first page of history was truth and ordained to establish with rule on earth based on truth, and hence also justice, it must also ultimately prevail at the end of history. So the angels had no knowledge of this end of history. They did not know of the events that would occur in this time at the beginning of history, which were connected to the end of history, that will give a eschatological justification for the divine announcement. So just bear with me a second, yeah?
Go ahead.
So Allah the Most High chose thousands of years later, from that time onwards, to cause our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to view that same forbidden tree to which Adam was prohibited from drawing close, and which he now described as the cursed tree in the Qur'an. So the Prophet viewed it in a vision which he was blessed to experience when he was taken on that miraculous journey, which we discussed before, Al-Isra wal-Miraj, or if you want, whatever you want to call it, from Makkah, that was built by Ibrahim, to the distant Masjid Jerusalem that was built by Solomon. And so that's in Surah Al-Isra, so, which is also called Surah Al-Banu Israel, yeah? So it's that kind of connection. So perhaps it's meant to indicate that Isra wal-Miraj allowed the Prophet to view the hell which mankind would experience because of the forbidden tree, the Jewish lust to rule the world for Jerusalem with a kingdom that would never decay or perish. So Allah then proceeded to explain the subject of that just rule on earth to Adam. So we're going back now. So Adam could receive this knowledge while the angels could not, because Allah, the Most High, had breathed into Adam from his divine rule or spirit. Consequently, because of this spirit, he became capable of receiving knowledge both externally and internally, as well as being capable through intuition, we say ilham, and critical thinking, to integrate internally received and externally acquired knowledge in a harmonious whole. So the implication was that the last rule on earth could be successfully established only by those who possessed the knowledge taught by Allah Most High to Adam alayhi salam and subsequently revealed in the divine scriptures. Only that knowledge could qualify them to rule. Hence, whoever did not possess that knowledge, which came from Allah the Most High, who was consequently incapable of applying that knowledge, the conduct of state would not be qualified to rule. So Allah the Most High then asked Nabi Adam alayhi salam to explain the subject of the rule on earth, and he did so in that Surah Al-Baqarah. Yeah? So I'm going to summarize that now. So to conclude, what we can deduce from this is that mankind was placed on earth for an overriding imperative of establishing a just rule over earth, and that such cannot be accomplished except by those who act faithfully in accordance with knowledge and guidance which Allah Most High revealed in the scriptures, and who pursue no other agenda while establishing their rule. The Quran has warned those who rule otherwise in Surah Al-Sad, I think Dawud alayhi salam, Sulaiman, that they will face an awful doom on Judgment Day. So that kind of hints towards the end of history with the return of Isa alayhi salam. Connected to the subject of the tree and Adam alayhi salam and angels, bringing all that together.
Well, I doubt that's going to take a lot of thought to unpack all of that. Let me get back to that in a minute. Let me just answer this question that somebody put. What's your stance on what's haram and halal, and does everything have to be haram if proven otherwise it's halal? No. In the Quran, both are the prerogative of Allah only, right? So in the Quran, Allah says, لا تقولوا لما تصف ألسنتكم الكذب هذا حلالا وهذا حراما لتفتروا على الله الكذب. Right? Do not sort of let loose your tongue to say this is halal and this is haram. Okay, both you're not allowed to do. You're not allowed to say something is halal, and you're not allowed to say something is haram. Right? So these two are categories that should be above other things, right? Untouchable, right? So now, unfortunately, people want to categorize everything as halal or haram, halal or haram, halal or haram. No, there are things, you can make categories below that, okay, where you say, this is allowed or not allowed, or just as part of our rules between ourselves. But in terms of what's halal and haram, these have to be elevated above that. Okay, these are categories that belong to Allah alone. There's halal and there's haram, and that's it. And you can't name anything else to be halal or haram other than what Allah has named as halal or haram. So that's what I'd say about that. Okay. Yeah. So what you're saying about this, I mean, I'm not going to be able to talk about all of that, but I'd like to know one thing when you open out from that reading. So the angels, one of the things that Allah says to them is, did I not tell you that I know what you conceal and what you reveal? So what do you think that angels knew but concealed but didn't say?
So this is connected to the end of history, to do with this establishment of this rule, and connected to this tree of eternal life, eternal rule, connected to the Jewish people. Because if you look at history, when the Messiah came, they were promised, they had a Sanhedrin, they had direct communication with Allah to establish His court here, and they turned to kufr. It's evident. And Allah says in it, when the statement is in the Quran, when they boasted, we've killed the Messiah, we've killed the son of Mary, and Allah said, you didn't kill him. So in the Quran, I think there's in Surah Al-Zukhruf, there's a reading of the Quran in one qiraat. It says La ilmul lisa'a or La alamul lisa'a. Now if you read it as La ilmul lisa'a, then the ayah becomes mutashabih, that He is the knowledge of the hour. Now the Quran, as we know, doesn't contradict itself internally. So Allah has the knowledge of the hour, He's the knowledge of the hour. So then what they do, the translators of the Quran, if you look at it, they say, oh, okay, this is ayah muhkam, now we have to turn it into mutashabih. What it means is that He's the sign of the hour. Now, as you know, from the mutashabih, that's not Kitab. As you know, you've spoken about that. But if you read it correctly, as Ibn Abbas read it, la'alamul lisa'a, then that becomes ayah muhkam. So now the implication is, what is the sign of the hour? And if you connect it to the other verses, the Quran is hinting at that subject, what Allah disclosed to Adam alayhi salam, or what the angels didn't know fully, that He will come back to establish this just kingdom. That's how I'm reading it. History it's just not just a mishmash of ideas, it just carries on indefinitely. History will end.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's something that I think all of us who are believers in the Quran and the afterlife, we can all agree on that. So definitely no concerns there. All right, let me bring on the last person, and I'll speak to you soon another time, but Jazakallah khair for that. What you said there is just going to have to be unpacked. I'm going to have to listen to that again.
It's quite a lot, yeah.
Yeah, it's quite dense, right? Okay, take it easy, and thanks again for coming on, and see you again soon. Assalamu alaikum. Okay, Shayma, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How are you?
Good, doing well.
Sorry to hear about your parents. I hope that may Allah give them shifa.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, they're fine. They're enjoying it over here. But just the health issues that come with age.
Yeah, it's hard to see our parents getting old.
Yeah, it is. But sunnatul haya, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it's cool because like sometimes, subhanAllah, the topics that are discussed are topics that are relevant to, like, sometimes you go to like a Jummah prayer or something and the khutbah is like talking to you, like it's so relevant to what's happening. But it's interesting how there's like two kind of themes, I guess. One is like being discussed is the story of Adam, and one the other one is the the Ankabut bait, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
These two are like so relevant to me this week, but it's cool because just through these listening to these conversations that you've had, it's like tying in. It's like making connections for me. So I just thought I would share.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so with regards to Adam and his story, like in Surah Al-Baqarah, where like the thing that I get from it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demonstrates that Adam is teachable, right? Because the angels are worried that with this free will that has been authorized for them, that it's not going to go well, the bad potential, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like a concern. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reassures them by demonstrating that he's teachable, like he has the ability to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and through this connection that bad potential can be prevented, like that's how I understand.
No, I understand completely that.
Yeah. And so to tie that into Surah Al-Ankabut, if you look at all the ayahs before it, this verse, Allah's talking about various nations that have been destroyed. So he talks about Shu'aib and how he came to them and they denied. So let me pull up the verses. he talks about how they denied, so they were destroyed. They denied, so they were destroyed. Musa, Fir'aun, they denied, so they were destroyed. Who else? There's Fir'aun, Ad and Thamud. He says that they were mustabsirin, like they were on guidance. They were I guess they did have enlightenment, but they chose to reject it. Like they went off the path. So they also were destroyed. But it's interesting because in the verses before, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses masakin and diyar to describe these other guys. But so did we say that bait is only used positively?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm not sure. I think it seems that way, but but again, this is something which I haven't looked into. It's something which I just started thinking about today, mostly, right? So I'm not sure about that, but yeah, bait is definitely used a lot more in a positive sense, it seems, and when it's linked to the people of the house. So bait seems to be just linked more with the people within it, right? Atul biyut min abwabiha, right? Come to the houses from their door, right? What does that mean? The houses there. You're talking about the families, right? And you have, like we said, Ahl al-Bayt, rahmatullahi wa barakatuh alaykum Ahl al-Bayt, and innama yuridu Allah liyuthhib ankum rijsa Ahl al-Bayt. So it's talking about, it's connected more to people. Whereas diyar seems to be just, the actual physical houses. Yeah. So that's what I think. So, but I'm not sure if bait is used in a negative way or not, or positive. Dar, somebody asked why is dar used for Jannah, right? In some of the verses, I'm sure there are some things. So dar al-khuld, right? Dar al-muqamati inda rabbihim. There's these verses which talk about where dar is used for Jannah, or used for things, لهم عقبة الدار, right? The final abode. So it's used in that, but is it used in a negative sense? Dar, like the hellfire, is hellfire called the dar sometimes? I don't know. I can't think of anything right now off the top of my head. But that's what I was. So that's what somebody was asking before about that. Why is dar used for Jannah? Shouldn't be bait used for Jannah if what you're saying is true, which isn't. What we're saying here isn't that bait is really a positive sense. just rather that bait extends beyond the physical structure, right? It's just
Right.
like, home is where the heart is, make a house a home, right? It's different from the physical dimension of just a house.
Right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. What stands out to me from the verse is اتخذت بيتا. So can this possibly mean that like كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا, that it took over another bait?
Could be. I never thought of it that way, but yeah, maybe اتخذت بيتا from
Because it's like
somebody
it
else,
took
from
over
something else.
a house. It took over a house. It takes a house. اتخذ means to take, right?
Yeah,
So
it's sort of
اتخذت
like,
بيتا. Like, because to tie, it's super important to tie in verses. Like, I feel like this is kind of like a bait in and of itself. When you're reading verses, right, and you're making the connections between the verses, and they're all flowing together. Because some people read the Qur'an and they're like, "Wow, what does this have to do with this? What does that have to do with that?" It's like, no, all of them are so cohesive, right? But you have to like activate those pathways in your brain and like really try to think about how each verse is so deeply connected to the one that follows. So if Allah is mentioning all of these nations just beforehand, right? And he's saying that they rejected, they did something wrong, and that brought about their state, the state that they succumb to. So the Ankabut is I feel like it did something wrong too. Like the example is also that there's something wrong that happened within the state of the Ankabut. So if it took over another bait, right? That's it taking awliya min dunillah. Like it's following, the wrong path. Like it's oppressing another bait. And so that's what makes it weak. Like, that's what causes it to be weakened. And so to tie it all in, basically salvation is contingent upon one maintaining that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And not taking awliya other than Allah, not following a different path, because that different path is going to cause you, it's going to remove that protection from you. It's going to cause you to be weak, basically. Like what brings about strength and protection and salvation is adhering to Allah's messages to you. Like basically adhering, you create this kind of protection around you. But once you leave that bubble, right, of like adherence, like within the parameters that Allah has laid out for you, you make yourself susceptible to weakness now. Now you're vulnerable, you're open to the elements, basically. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, when, like you said, if you tie a lot of other verses with this together, right? It is this verse. If you think about, like you said, the previous verses where it's talking about the nations being destroyed and the rest of it. Well, most of these nations were destroyed because, for the most part, the general public, the general people, the majority, they took the leaders as awliya. They took the rich people. They took the sada, the kubara. They took them as awliya. And so when you read this kind of verse, مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء, who are these who are taken من دون الله أولياء? They're the majority of the people. And who are the awliya that they are taken? They are the sort of the leaders, the people in charge. They're taking them as awliya, and like you said, trying to be in a position of strength by that, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And they say, no, this will be a weakness, right? So and in other verses, what's called after Surah after ayat after ayat al-Kursi, what's it called? أولياءهم الطاغوت, right?
Right.
يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات. So, it's saying that the الذين كفروا, the awliya or the طاغوت, right? They take them out of the light into the ظلمات, right? الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور. Allah is the wali of الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور. He takes them out of darkness to light. والذين كفروا أولياءهم الطاغوت. The awliya are the طاغوت. Right? So when you look at this verse, مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء, you're talking about الذين كفروا towards الطاغوت. Right?
Exactly.
They are taking, and they take them out of the light to the darkness, right? So you're right. When you link it up together, I mean, the thing about this verse is it's very central in the surah. It comes more in the middle. It's not like one of those verses which comes sort of like at the end. Because when I first thought of it, okay, and I thought to myself, okay, when you think of Surah Al-Ankabut and the verse of Al-Ankabut, I for some reason I was thinking of it as towards the end of the surah, because you sometimes have these sort of like signature verses, which give you an important method, sort of at the end of the surah. But this is more towards the middle, right? And I haven't looked through the surah in relation to this, but I'm wondering what's the difference between the verses before it and the verses after it. You're saying that the verses before it, I haven't looked through them, to be honest. The verses before it are all the ones about the nations and being destroyed, etc. Right?
What comes after it is a very famous verse that is used very often, a few ayahs down, where Allah says, "Inna as-salata tanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari, wa la dhikrullahi akbar." That one. So it's just reiterating. Yeah, it reinforces.
It reinforces it. Taking Allah as a wali, you'd be remembering him in that kind of way with dhikr and stuff. But I was meaning like in a more general way, because if before that the majority of the verses before this are about the stories of the Prophet, or the majority afterwards about nature or about, I don't know, and that was something that needs to be looked into. But yes, that verse is when, how many verses afterwards is it? وكأين من دابة لا تحمل رزقها ولئن سألتهم من خلق السماوات والأرض الله يبسط الرزق لمن يشاء ولئن سألتهم من نزل وما هذه الحياة الدنيا فإذا ركبوا في الفلك ليكفروا بما آتيناهم.
There's also the.
So it seems the rest of the verses are going within that same idea of bringing of distinguishing between taking Allah as a wali versus the taghut. It talks about those who invent lies against Allah. There's that one, and it's about the dunya as well, and it has here as well. وَإِنَّ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ لَهِيَ الْحَيَوَانِ. So here is a use of dar in that positive sense. And then we have وَمَا هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا لَهْوٌ وَلَعِبٌ. So the signature verse, coming back to the idea of the signature verse in this surah, is actually the verse near the end, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Right? That's one which always in the very final verse. وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those who do jihad in us, we will guide them to our paths. Because that, of course, goes with the first verse. حسب الناس أن يتركوا أن يقولوا آمنا وهم لا يفتنون. The people think that they will be left alone
without being tested. Wow,
without being tested, right? So that's why you have to strive in Allah, right? That you're being tested and being put into fitna. So you can strive for Allah, and the purpose of it, of course, is for Allah to find out not the believers and the kafir, but to learn the truthful from the kadhib, right? فَلِيَعْلَمَنَّ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ صَدَقُوا وَلِيَعْلَمَنَّ الْكَاذِبِينَ.
Yeah, there's one ayah that is very important for me. where Allah's telling us, there's only like 3 ayahs in the Quran where Allah tells all of us to say something. Like a lot of times He tells Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to say qul.
Yeah.
But there's only 3 times where Allah says qulu, like something specific, right?
Yeah.
So one is in Surah Al-Baqarah where Allah, I feel like that's our shahada. Surah Al-Baqarah where Allah says, Amanna, yeah, like, you know, and don't differentiate between the messengers. And then there's this one, which is telling us what to say to like the people of the book. And it's the same idea, basically. Don't differentiate. Like, we believe in what you believe, and like, you know, our Lord is one Lord, like, and we believe in what was sent down to you guys as well. So like, it also, it's interesting that all the qulus have the same idea, basically. Like
yeah, I never noticed that.
Yeah, and it has to do, I feel like, with this like idea of like being aggressive towards other people, because aggression is something that is like, you know, takes you out of that protected state when you aggress against others. And kind of like اتخذت بيتا, maybe the ankabut is like aggressing, you know, like maybe it all ties down to like that taghut leads you to aggression, basically, and like wronging other people.
Do you include, sorry, because I'm thinking about this now, do you include of those 3 verses, because I haven't looked at this, but there's also, of course, the verse which I think, which what you're saying, like this, it summarizes that قولوا للناس حسنا, right?
Yes,
say to people goodness.
That's more general. Yeah, so
yeah, that's what I was asking. So that's not one of the 3 that you were mentioning, right?
No, and there's even qulu qawlan sadida. Like, these are general, right? But I'm talking about like specific statements, like very, you know, specific statements. There's only 3 of them. The other one is in Surah Al-Hujurat about the Arab. Don't say amanna walakin qulu aslamna. Yeah, like we submit.
Yes.
Yeah, they all have kind of similar ideas, like similar meanings. And I feel like that's how we should formulate like our testimony of faith from those.
Yeah. I mean, you know what, that would be a very good one to do on the live stream. Actually, why don't you do it? Why don't you want to do it, huh?
I don't know. I don't do this stuff. I like this format where like I'm bouncing off of your ideas as well, but to do it all by myself, and you know. All
right, okay, no problem. That's fine. But yeah, maybe I'll do it then. I'll just put those 3 verses. I'll have to look them up. But that's very interesting. So those 3 verses you're saying are they all addressed to Ahlul Kitab, or is it just 2 of them?
No, so the qulu in Baqarah is all of us, like literally every person. That's the that for me is like the testimony of faith.
Yeah, but it's in the context of that verse. It is like speaking, like it's like us speaking to Ahlul Kitab, right? It's it's in that dialogue, isn't it? In Surah Al-Baqarah.
No, so it's part
of dialogue. No.
It comes right after Yaqub and his final thing, right?
Yeah, okay.
And then after Allah says, "This is Sibghatullah," like subhanallah, those verses really like are. They always were so meaningful to me, from even as like, you know, when I just started this thing like years and years and years ago. But I never quite like grasped them. And you know what's so cool is that what I realized is that right before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He وَإِذِ ابْتَلَى إِبْرَاهِيمَ رَبُّهُ بِكَلِمَاتٍ. It's with words, فَأَتَمَّهُنْ, right?
Yeah.
I feel like those kalimat are summarized like in that. Like,
you know, somebody one time asked me about that, and I was like, okay, what are the kalimat which you know, which God, you know, tested Ibrahim with, and it says فَأَتَمَّهُ, right?
Yeah.
And it seems what is the ibtila? When I was thinking about this, I thought, okay, the thing I came to was it must be that It was like starting. It was like God tested him by starting him, giving him the beginning words, and the test was to see if he could finish them, right? If he would carry on in the right way.
Yeah.
Okay, so with ibtala رحم ربه بكلمات. It's kalimat is like it's said like a few words. Kalimat, just a few words, not a lot. بكلمات, and then Ibrahim continued them. So فأتمهن, right? And because of that, because Ibrahim was able to sort of to continue those words and fulfill, to go on along on the right way, right? Not deviate from that sort of the trend that God had set with his words. Ibrahim was able to continue with them and complete them, right? Without Allah, sort of without Allah's having to give them to him, right? And so because of that, he was made an imam, right? Because he was able to follow that path on his own initiative. He was able to complete the words on his own. قال إني جاعلك للناس إماما قال ومن ذريتي, because of that. So that's what I was thinking. Sorry, I cut you off when you were mentioning that, but that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
When somebody asked me about that a long time ago, I remember someone was saying, well, what are these kalimat which...
No, because I feel like
because they're not mentioned, right? So they're not being mentioned means well, what's being told to us here isn't the important thing, isn't the kalimat itself, but it was Ibrahim's response to them, that God gave him some kalimat as a test, and then he was able to complete them. That's the important part. Yeah.
Well, Allah's response to our seeking is not concrete, right? Like it's that's why the salah tanha anil fahsha wal munkar, because it's his response. If you internalize it correctly, if you receive them correctly, they're supposed to prevent you from wronging, right? Like from doing wrong things. So it's a challenge. Like it's not something concrete. It's more abstract. You have to really like listen. You have to be very like sensitive to these responses. So the fact that he tammahum tam al-kalimat is, for me, I see it as though he was like very attentive. Like he was following those messages in a sensitive way. Like he was listening carefully, like, And so I feel like there's those kalimat are summarized like in the ayahs that follow, which is that ultimately, like, we don't break up Allah's message by attaching it to one guy. Like, the Christians, they attached it to Isa, and they started to like, go on a tangent that way. And the Jews did that to Musa. And what it is basically like, you don't differentiate between the messengers, because that kind of breaks up the message. Like, the message is not attached to one man. It comes, the same message, through various men. And once you start to like break it up and start focusing on the man now, that kind of dilutes the message itself. Like it starts to disform the message.
Yeah.
So how he tammahum is that like he kept the message unadulterated. Basically, he kept it pure, and he like saw it all the way through.
I might, because when you say atam, right, titmam al-shay, tatimmaha, it's like you're completing it in terms of like it hasn't been finished, right?
Yeah.
In terms of it hasn't been finished, and the way it's been mentioned in the kalimat, it seems to me like these are just a few words, kalimat, and then to complete. So the other way would be akmalahun, right? That would be like, okay, he perfected them. Or it would be like, I'm trying to think of a different word that would fit better to what you're saying, because tammahun reads to me like the kalima. Like if I were to say to you, Bismillah, right, and you didn't know Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Imagine that. Imagine that we didn't have Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, right? And God were to test you, right? To test you by saying, I'm gonna start Bismillah, and I want you to finish something else, add two things to it, right? And you could have added, Bismillah Jabbar Qahar, right? Bismillah, I don't know, Al-Razzaq, Al-Qawi, Bismillah. You could have added any names, any of God's names there, right? But in giving you that and then asking you to complete it, it shows something about what you are, right? Which two names of Allah will you choose to go with, to come after Bismillah? How will you complete that? And so that's sort of like a test. So that's the sort of idea that I was going with when I looked at that.
I think you're onto something for sure, because it's not that he added to it, I don't think, but it's that he saw it through and he extended it maybe to generations to come. Because if you look at his ad'iyah, he's focused on the generations that come after him, right? Like his main focus is not himself. His main focus is like the people that come after him. Rabbi ja'al hadha al-balada aminan. Is that from Surah Al-Baqarah? Yeah. وَارْزُقْ أَهْلَهُ مِنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ مَنْ آمَنَ مِنْهُمْ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ. Like he's focused on the people after him. So his main focus is not just on the present. It's like, how can we make this like a lasting? That is truly like an imam, right? That he's like thinking about those that come after him.
Yes.
Like his first question is like, وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي. Like, what about my descendants? You know? And Allah's saying, لَا يَنَالُ عَهْدَ الظَّالِمِينَ.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. MashaAllah. All right, okay. All right, Shema, it was brilliant speaking to you again, and wonderful to have you on again. Thank you so much. Because I want to close it up now because it is getting late where I am. I'm going to have an early start tomorrow. But that was brilliant. Thank you again so much for coming on. Hello, you still there?
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, sorry. I was talking, but you didn't hear me. Jazakumullah khair. Take care. Talk to you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Take care. Salam rahmah. All right, people. So I think I explained about the Mosque of Harm in Surah At-Tawbah. Is it true that the Mosque of Harm exists today? So a question here from Tho607. Well, I mean, I have that. You did watch that video, I assume that I made. And yes, I would say that the Mosque of Harm it's not that it just exists today. It's always existed, right? It's existed even before it was built in the Prophet's time. If we talk about it in that kind of way, that there were people that were opposed to the Prophet while he was alive, right? And if you know about the attempt on the Prophet's life, it's related to that, by the way. The Masjid al-Dirar, the event of Masjid al-Dirar that happened in Medina, it's related to the Prophet, to the attempt on the Prophet's life, because that masjid was built and the plan was to, when the Prophet was out on the expedition to Tabuk, to assassinate him there. And then the place where he prayed last, which was this mosque, well, they wanted him to pray in this mosque anyway, he didn't. But they wanted him to pray in that mosque and then go and be killed, and they could claim that the last place the Prophet prayed was this mosque, and he was happy with its imam, and so now this imam would be the leader, etc., etc. So there was a whole thing about that. But it was because there was a movement. It was built by the hypocrites. The Mosque of Harm was built by the hypocrites. And those hypocrites lived after the Prophet died as well. The people who tried to assassinate the Prophet were still alive after he died. The people who built that mosque were still alive after he died. The people who were involved in that were still alive after he died, and they continued, right? And after the Prophet died, of course, they would continue in their efforts to to bring things to themselves, to cause harm, to cause division. As the surah says, those who built this mosque out of like, you know, as out of kufr and tafriqan bain al-mu'minin, to try to divide the believers, to try to bring to spy for the enemies, right? Those people were still alive. Those people still alive after Prophet's death, and they continued doing things after his death. And so you had this development of these two streams. Okay, there were people who were, you know, and after the Prophet died, of course, they could say what they want. They could, you know, invent what they want. Yeah, undoubtedly, the munafiqeen continued to cause harm after the Prophet's death. I mean, it's one of the big problems in Sunni Islam, definitely, that they think that the hypocrites were only active while the Prophet was alive. They created all of this trouble while the Prophet was alive. And then after he died, what? They never existed. Was the Prophet the cause of munafiqeen? That when the Prophet died, all of the hypocrites in the Ummah died the same day as him? No, of course not. They lived after him, and of course they were worse after him. Okay, they were worse after him. But this has got to do with history. I mean, there's a lot of history which you know, you have to sort of like reassess and relook at. But definitely, in fact, the Quran, if you read the Quran chronologically, the amount of hypocrites were increasing, right? They were increasing. The early surahs, it doesn't mention the hypocrites much. In the last two surahs, the hypocrites are mentioned a lot, right? Which shows that there were a huge number. There were a huge number of hypocrites at the time. When the Prophet died, you know, there were a lot of hypocrites. That the Ridda wars were an example of that. Well, the Ridda wars were sort of related to that. How they were handled was badly, okay, but it was related to the Mosque of Harm. It was related to the Mosque of Harm, if we think of it that way, because the people who were like the Ridda wars, they, you know, the way we think of them now is that they were all these Arab tribes apostated. That isn't exactly how it was. There were some who didn't apostate at all, but they were considered to be apostates. So, for example, there were some who had refused to send the taxes to Medina, and they refused for two reasons. One is that they thought that you know, they knew that Ali had been selected by the Prophet to be the leader after him. So why should we have to send our wealth to Abu Bakr? What's going on? You know, they weren't sure what's going on there. And the other reason was, in any case, the Prophet told them to collect their taxes among themselves and distribute it among themselves, right? From their rich to their own poor, not to be sent all the way to Medina, right? It was supposed to be within themselves. And so, you know, Abu Bakr didn't allow that, and he fought them all, right? He decided, no, I'll treat them all to be the same. Right, anybody who doesn't give me the zakat is the same as a person as the tribes which declared a new prophet. Okay, so that was a mess. That was part of it could have been handled much better. Another issue was the issue of Khalid ibn Walid and Malik ibn Nuwayra. That was another part of that, where basically Khalid did the same thing again that he did during the conquest of you know, right after the conquest of Mecca. You know, and the Prophet went to the mosque and he said, "Oh Allah, I'm innocent of what Khalid has done. I'm innocent of what Khalid has done. I'm innocent of what Khalid has done." Then he sent Ali with some money to sort out the mess and pay the blood money, etc. The exact same thing happened again during Abu Bakr's caliphate, and Abu Bakr didn't do any of that. In fact, when the families came to seek justice, Abu Bakr put them off because he didn't want to do anything to Khalid. So slowly, things started to, you know, to get worse and worse, right? So in the end, the companions were influenced by the hypocrites, causing the early Muslims to suffer by the fate of times. Yeah, definitely. The Muslims were influenced by hypocrites while the Prophet was alive. The Quran says, وَفِيكُمْ سَمَّاعُونَ لَهُمْ, and among you are those who listen to these hypocrites. Even while the Prophet was alive, there were some who listened to them, you know. And the Quran talks about وَمَا لَكُمْ فِي الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِئَتَيْن. Why is it that you, believers, are split because of the munafiqeen into two groups, right? Some of you are sort of sympathetic with them, and some of you are not. Well, why is that the case? You should be one united front against the munafiqeen. Why was Uthman buried in the Jewish cemetery? Because people are not happy with him. You know, the people who revolted against him were the Sahaba themselves. People think it wasn't. No, it was the Sahaba. The Sahaba were the ones who revolted against Uthman. The leaders against Uthman were the Sahaba. And you know, he again, look at there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of history. But yeah, they didn't want him to be buried there because some considered him a kafir, some considered him that he'd, you know, they didn't want him to be buried there, so they, you know, they prevented it. So there's a lot there. I mean, I would recommend that you just, if you want to read about the things that happened after the Prophet's death, there's not that many books that would go along that give as critical a evaluation as I would think so. You have to sort of like put things together. Maybe one day, you know, if I can, I'd try to write something like that. But maybe the best book that I would recommend to start with would be the academic book on the succession to Muhammad by Madanum. Okay, the succession. Let me try and find it for you now. By Wilfred Madanum. This book here. You copy and paste it into the chat. And so if you want to get into, but you know, some of it has, the problem is that of course, if you don't have a clear picture of what things were like before the Prophet passed away, like and the situation before he passed away, you're not going to understand the rest either, like what happened afterwards, because it's going to be based on what happened before. But it's not a rosy picture. Okay? It's not a rosy picture that that we sort of grew up with in Sunni Islam, that the Prophet died and everybody was sort of like as one voice behind him. No, you know, he died almost ignored, right, by all the Muslims. For over 14 days, he's telling them to go to send out the army of Usama, and they basically disobey. The whole, you know, nobody's doing what he's telling them to do. And you know, he's sick, and he's telling them, "Don't give me any medicine," right? And they give him they give him medicine. He tells them, "Give me something to write down." Write something for you so you will never go astray. And they're like, oh no, he's lost his wits, or he's just talking madness. So it wasn't the best ending. Yeah, that's right. I mean, because of course it's you know, history is written by the victors, right? History is written and narrated by the victors. So that's just what happened. Most of our hadiths, they come from just a few set number of Sahaba. Okay, a few set number of Sahaba, the ones who are closest to the authorities. Okay, the ones who are closest to the Umayyad authorities. Okay, you get Abu Huraira, you know, Ibn Abbas, not because he himself was close to them, but because his student was, Ikrimah, his main narrator. You have Ibn Umar, who was, you know, he's the one who like said, you know, you must keep to the bay'ah of Yazid, etc. Aisha as well, Aisha and her nephew Urwa. He was very close to Muawiyah. Aisha herself, because she stood out against others. Anyway. Assalamu alaikum. Carl, sorry, but we're just about to pack this up. What is this series about? Well, the series is something I started around almost 2 years ago. 2 years ago now. It was just to encourage people to contemplate the Quran, to think about it, to not be scared, to take wisdom and insights from the Quran themselves. That the Quran is actually easy, as Allah has said. وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ. We've made the Quran easy for you to take guidance from it, remembrance from it. That it's not difficult, that you don't need to be scared of it, that it will misguide you. As some scholars will tell you that the Quran will misguide you if you try to approach it by yourself. No, it will not. Okay, the only thing you need for the Quran is an unlocked heart. Don't lock your heart behind your sect or what scholars have said or what this has said. Put your faith in Allah and actually just read and contemplate. So this was supposed to encourage people to contemplate the Quran and to come on here and share any contemplation that they have without any any judgment towards what they might say. It's just to encourage people. Okay? It's not about being right or wrong about it, but to encourage you to really think about the Quran and contemplate it. And so what I usually do is I present something in the beginning. I sort of like trying to model that, encourage that, and then afterwards the mic is open for whoever wants to come on. So if you would like that, feel free to come next time we do this. We do this every 2 weeks, usually, and you can see my channel, check the live tab, and you'll see the previous episodes, so to speak. What's your journey with the about? I'm not sure what you mean with the about. You can address only if you have time, inshallah. Sure, I can, but what? I didn't really understand what you were saying there. What's your journey with the Quran about? With the book? Yeah, my journey with the Quran itself, you mean? Well, born Muslim and from a Sunni Islam background, and just slowly as you learn more and more about your religion and come to it, sort of like to come to it more, you come to see the problems with it and what are issues with it, and all around, basically, to summarize it, I came to see that a lot of Islam is not based on the Quran, just as most of Christianity isn't based on the Bible, right? So they drift away from each other. Whereas, of course, even though the Bible would say there are some problems in its transmission and reliability, etc., at least the Quran we know is very, very reliable. Yet still, the religion of Islam is not really following in the path of the Quran. So when I started to see that, I started to sort of like separate out the religion, the Islam of the Quran versus the religion or Islam of our tradition, or inherited Islam, as I call it, which is mostly based on the hadith and the narrations and that sort of stuff. So that's a bottom line journey. A big influencer for me on that was a Saudi scholar called Hassan Farhan al-Maliki. If you check this channel, you'll see a few translations of his videos. So that's it in a nutshell. Yes, the Quran can be read and understood without the historical context, especially for what you need. What in terms of when you say read and understood, you really want what? You really want to take the guidance from the Quran. That's what it's there for. But yes, it can be understood. That doesn't mean that It doesn't have things which address history or which are important in that sort of way. But just read it with intelligence. Read it with it's a book made for the intelligent people, right? It will guide those who give it its due. Okay, don't be foolish with it. Be patient, and trust yourself, and have some faith in God when you're reading it as well. But yes, I mean, just look at there's lots of people who are non-Muslim, right? And they read the Quran, they become Muslim just from the Quran. Give it its due. That's what I would say. All right, okay. I think I'm going to end it there because it is getting pretty late and I do have an early start tomorrow. So, Jazakumullah khair. Thank you so much for coming on, everybody who did come on. And inshallah, I'll be able to do this again in a couple of weeks. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.